All right, so my fraction at the left is already simple. Now, my fraction at the right, I have two methods. I learned in the previous section I have two methods. One, I can simplify the fraction and let both fractions equal each other. So, or I also learned method two, which says get rid of fractions. Now just come over and eliminate fractions. For my fractions, I can even write this as over 1. For my fractions, I'm going to say my least common denominator is x minus 2. So I'm going to multiply each fraction by x minus 2. Because that way, this cancels out and I just get an x. This cancels out and I just get a 2. Now here, I have to distribute this 2. So I'm going to have 2x minus 4. Let me simplify. I have an x on the left side. The right side, let me simplify that as 2x minus 2, right? I combine my like terms. I'm going to solve for x. So let me subtract 2x. That way I put my x's together. X minus 2x gives me negative 1x. And it says this is equal to negative 2. To get the x by itself, let me divide by 1. And I get x is equal to 2. I mentioned that there could be a problem when we have a letter at the bottom. Now here, I see that if I said x equals 2, one of my fractions, or more, in this case 2 fractions, but at least one of my fractions, I have a 0 at the bottom. So that means I cannot choose 2 because 2 makes a 0 at the bottom. As long as one of your solutions makes it a 0 at the bottom of a fraction, we cannot choose that solution. So it says x equals 2, but I cannot choose 2. So I'm going to say this thing has no solution. Once again, I know x equals 2, but at the same time, I know x cannot be 2. So there's no solution. Another way we write in my math lab to say there's no solution, we say the solution set is empty, which means there's no solution. All right, let's take a look at this one. So let me factor the first fraction, just the denominator, that is x, because I'm going to factor an x out, x minus 1. Looking at my denominator here, I'm going to say this is x minus 1, x plus 1. So before we move on, I'm going to say, all right, let me choose which values of x I cannot have. I cannot have a 0 because that means that's a 0. So that whole fraction is 0. I cannot have a 1 because it makes that a 1. Makes that a 0. I cannot have a negative 1 because it makes that 0. Remember, the values of x that make the bottom 0, I cannot choose them. All right, so once again, I'm going to solve for x, and hopefully it's neither of these numbers. Now, once again, how we're going to solve this, we have a method which says eliminate denominators. And how we're going to eliminate it? By multiplying both sides, multiply every fraction by the least common denominator. So I'm going to say my least common denominator is x times x minus 1 times x plus 1. Multiply each side by that. So this x cancel out. This x minus 1 cancel out. Now on the top, x plus 1 multiplied by 2, I get 2x plus 2. Don't forget to distribute the 2. Equals, on this side, x minus 1 cancels out there. X plus 1 cancels out there. And I get 1x. Cool. I'm going to subtract an x. I'm going to subtract a 2. And I get that x is equal to negative 2. First, let me check which values I cannot choose for x. Negative 2 is not one of them. All right, so this one does have a solution. X equals negative 2. Let's take a look at here. I'm going to split my fraction, m squared minus 4, I'm going to split it as m minus 2, m plus 2. All right, let me check on the numbers that I cannot choose, and I'm going to say m cannot be 2 because it will make that a 0, and m cannot be negative 2 because it will make that a 0. That's a 2, but I already have it. That's a negative 2, I already have it. So I'm going to solve for m, but it cannot be 2 and it cannot be negative 2. Okay. My least common denominator, we can see, is going to be m minus 2, m plus 2. So multiplied everything by that. My first fraction, my m minus 2's cancel out, my m plus 2 cancel out, so I just get 2m. My second fraction, my m minus 2 cancel out, distribute the 1, so I'm going to have 1m plus 2 equals, here I'm going to have my m plus 2 cancel out, distribute the 2, so I have 2m minus 4. Okay. Now the way I'm going to solve this, I'm going to move all my m's to the left. All my terms that don't have an m, I'm going to move them to the right. Don't forget that when I move them, I switch the sign. All right. Combine your like terms on the left. 2m plus 1m minus 2m. And I'm combining all my terms. That gives me 1m. Looking on the right, negative 4 minus 2, that gives me negative 6. I look at my numbers of m I cannot choose. Negative 6 is not one of them. So good. M equals negative 6. Okay, in this case, I'm going to split this as x minus 1, x plus 1. Then I'm thinking, all right, what values of x will make any of my factors at the bottom equal to 0? And I'm going to say 1 and negative 1. So I cannot choose those numbers. My solution should not be one of those numbers. Okay, so we can agree that the least common denominator will be 2 x minus 1, x plus 1. Let me write it over here as well. And let me write it over here as well. I'm going to write it next to each fraction. Okay. My first fraction, x minus 1 with x minus 1 cancel out. Now distribute everything. I'm going to first multiply 1 times 2. My result, which we know is 2, my result, I'm going to distribute to the inside. So I have 2x plus 2. Here, I'm going to cancel out these 2's. And I'm going to get x squared minus 1. We learned how to distribute before. X minus 1, distribute the x, and you get x squared plus 1x. Distribute the negative 1, you get negative x minus 1. Those x's cancel out, so that's why I wrote x squared minus 1. Okay. This is going to equal to x minus 1 with x minus 1 cancel out. X plus 1 with x plus 1 cancel out. And I'm going to say this is equal to 4. Right? I have two 2's, multiply them out, so that's 4. I see I have an x squared and I have an x. I cannot combine those. Those are not going to be like terms. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move everything to the left. Let me rearrange things though. X squared. This minus 4, I'm also going to bring it over here. I'm going to write this as x squared plus 2x. Now, all those numbers, I can combine them, right? 2 minus 1 minus 4. That is minus 3. So I have x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals 0. I can factor this as x plus 3, x minus 1. So I'm going to say that x is going to be equal to negative 3 or positive 1. I cannot choose positive 1. So my answer is x equals negative 3.